Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be starting my January wrap-up. So you may see this in two parts because I don't feel like bringing the books that I've already read with me to school and I need space. So I'm going to do two parts. The first three are in this this wrap-up, and the others will be in the other wrap-up that I will mash together after I do my edits. So the first three books that I have physically that I've read in the first month of the first few weeks of January. So we're going to talk about those. The first book that I finished, and I think I've started in January as well, was Escaping from Houdini by Carrie Maniscalco, and this is the third book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series / companion series, something like that. As you know, I love this series. I made this whole video on it. I'll probably link it in one of the cards above or down below because it just gives me the reasons to tell you why to do it, and plus it's with my new ring light, so it's a good test to have. But this one was a very good third book in this series. I really liked it. As always, I give Carrie Maniscalco books 5 stars because she does very well with, you know, the historical setting and how she incorporates the different historical people in the context of the story and how the murders take place. And if you guys don't know what this series is about, it's about a girl, Audrey Rose, and a guy named Thomas Cresswell, and they basically solve murders with their uncle about like not mythological things, but things that you wouldn't think exist. So I recommend you read this series because it's so great, and I am obsessed with it. The second book that I finished in the month of January was The Wicked King by Holly Black, and this is the second book in the Fair Folk of the Air series. I think that's what that's called. This book is the sequel to The Cruel Prince, and I love The Cruel Prince, so I wasn't expecting anything less than The Cruel Prince. And this one I didn't really enjoy as much as I enjoyed The Cruel Prince. I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, but it was so slow, and for how big it is, it was so slow. It was so like complicated, and I was just like, this could have been like easily either bigger, slightly bigger, or it could have just been like put off. All this other stuff can be put off into another book. But regardless, I enjoyed it. Jude was kind of annoying though, still. Yeah, so I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. And the next book that I read was Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. This is like the second book in the Creekwood series, but this is kind of like a third companion to Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which I read and I loved. I loved it, and I also read The Upside of Unrequited, and I loved it. Again, this one, I related to Leah a bit just because she liked a lot of the things that I liked, you know, Harry Potter, Star Wars, you know, stuff like that. And she was very nerdy, so who does that sound like? Me! I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, there's like a few parts in here that were kind of questionable to me, and I just didn't really understand why. It's just all up to people at this point. But this follows Leah, who is Simon's best friend, as she is trying to discover herself before she graduate high school, and she is basically trying to figure out, like, you know, does she like this one guy or this one girl? I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, quick read. I read this within like a few days anyway, and this was a pretty nice read. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in the month of January was one of my first real adult reads that I actually read ever, and I didn't really know what to expect. I wanted to read something adult, but like new adult, so I can like kind of relate to it. So that book is Sweet Filthy Boy by Christina Lauren, and this is the first book in the seasons series. So I read this on ebook, and then I actually wanted to have the physical version, so that's why I actually have my physical version. But this book is about the series is about a group of girls who once they graduate college, they go on a trip to Vegas before they go on to their future endeavors. So this follows the first girl, Mia, who is just destined to go to business school when she meets this guy, Ansel, who is from France, and they hit it off, sort of. I mean, they have sex that night, and then he asks her to go to France with him, and she's kind of like, it's her journey of trying to figure out who she is, what she wants to do, and kind of if she wants to be with him or if she wants to actually live up to her family's dream of going to business school after college. These weren't like the best books that I could possibly read, but they were actually like something like good and light and fluffy that I could read. So I ended up giving Sweet Filthy Boy a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So then after that I continued on to the next book, which is Dirty Rowdy Thing, which I heard wasn't as great as the first one, and people choose to ignore this one, and I was just kind of like, we'll see how I feel. And you know what? I have that same exact feeling. I gave this 3 stars. This follows the second friend, Harlow, who is basically like this girl who always has flings with people. She always has like casual one-night stands, so it doesn't really matter like what she does. And then she meets Finn, who is, I guess, from Canada, and they end up hitting it off, and like they have this thing. I didn't really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the Sweet Filthy Boy, just because I got more attached to Mia, because Mia was kind of like me in a sense. Like, I don't know. I liked Mia a lot more than I liked Harlow. Harlow's a little like hardcore, like sex girl for me, and I'm like, a lot of what they did was like very like the whole book was just them having sex the whole time, and then they end up falling in love. That's basically what happens. I choose to ignore this, but again, like, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, you kind of got to see how each character grew and like what happened to them. It was a really quick read. I gave it 3 stars, but like, it's still like not the best thing. Continuing on with my Christina Lauren journey, I actually read Dark Wild Night, which is the 3rd book in the season's series. I also got the 4th book, Wicked Sexy Liar. I haven't read it yet. But this one follows Lola and Oliver, Oliver is this guy, I think from Australia, and they're both nerds. And this one was my favorite out of all of them so far, because I related to both of them so much. So Mia is a comic book writer who she wrote a series that kind of went viral, and then she got it published. And then she's working on another one. It's kind of her discovering like how to balance Oliver, her love life and her work life and her life besides that. And I loved this one. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. And as you can see, my copy is kind of tattered up, but I read the ebook version of this, and I really enjoyed it. I really related to Lola, and just, I love her. And every time that I read Lola, I thought of Lola from Rain. So I ended up picturing Anna Poppy, whatever her last name is, who plays Lola in Rain. So that was kind of cool. The next book that I read was a conclusion to a trilogy that everyone was preparing for. There's like another like spin-off like series or book that came out this past Tuesday called King of Scars. So I decided to finish the Christian trilogy with Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. And this book was my favorite by far out of all 3, just because you got all different things happening. And I'm not going to spoil anything for this series, because I know that a lot of people haven't read this series, like myself included, until this week. So I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't like a woo 5-star book for me, but like I still enjoyed it. I still loved the characters. I loved seeing Nikolai. He's my babe. I love him. Like, y'all can fight me, and you bet that I'm stoked for the King of Scars, which I don't own yet, but I need it. The last book that I finished in the month of January, I read a lot of books this month. I think I read 10 books this month, which is very abnormal because I have school to worry about. But, so, the last book that I read, I just finished, and I loved it. This is my first time reading from this author because everyone loves her, and I'm just like, I've never read a B.E. Schwab book in my life, and I don't know if I want to. But then I bought A Darker Shade of Magic, and I ended up reading it, and I loved it. A lot of these tabs are literally what Lila Bard says. I love Lila Bard. She is my queen, and this book was amazing. I literally just finished it, and I'm like, give me the next book. What's the next book called? That's the last book. I don't remember what the last book is. I'll probably remember it and then be like, that's what it is. Gathering of Shadows. That's what it is. I loved this book, and I can't wait to see what happens in The Gathering of Shadows and in A Conjuring of Light, because I just want to see Delilah Bard. Like, I love her. There was something that I guessed about her in this book, and if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm just like, I'm a prediction nerd. I know what I'm doing, and this is great. I am posting a vlog type thing probably like next week, and I finished or tried to finish reading this book during that vlog, so like when that vlog comes out, you'll see like me like screaming that because I figured out what happens with Delilah. But I love this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I can't wait to continue on with the series after this. And I lied. And the last book that I've read, I actually read for school, but it's great because I've read this book before, and that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And this is like one of the first like classic YA books that exist. And she wrote this when she was like 16, which is pretty cool. And I didn't really enjoy it as much. I read it before. It was a reread for me because I had to read it for my young adult fiction reading class. And I ended up reading this freshman year of college, and I still didn't like it after my second read. And so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars just because I hated it. I hated it. I'm not going to go into why I hated it because there's so many things I hate about it, but I just wanted to share that with you because I read that for school. This was my January wrap-up. I hope you guys enjoyed. My name is Olivia, you're on Bookish Perkins Nice channel, and I hope to see you soon with another video.